All right, let's attempt to make this work. Are we tired? Yeah, maybe a little bit, but obviously, as you're seeing, it is the birthday week. So, celebration to all Virgos. But listen, we got to talk about Real Housewives of New York, season 14, episode number 8, Business Classy. Is that what it is? Let me look at my notes. Hold on, I'm using a computer today. Usually it's just like off the top of my mind. Yes, Business Classy, episode number 8. Obviously, this was a big episode for Jenna because, things went in a certain way where people really couldn't take her. So we'll define and we'll talk about it here. Did the jealousy start to come through? Is that like something that we're going to start to see? Anyway, who knows? You could have your favorites. I always say there's a couple of cast members that really, in my mind, are hitting the stride and becoming really good for the franchise and for Bravo and for reality TV. And then there's a couple that still are on the fence. Well, wait a minute. With this cast, didn't some of the other ladies have an issue with like, oh, I wouldn't be caught, at this restaurant, catch because it's not the big deal. So on one level, you are showcasing that, you have a lavish lifestyle. There's nothing wrong with that. But then on another level, you're like, excuse me, Jenna Lyons, the Jenna Lyons can't fly coach. Who does she think she is? Sets up a lot of funness. Funness, is that a word? A lot of fun for the episode, but that's kind of what we'll get into. Recapping season number 14, like I said, episode 8, Business Classy. And it really did make Jenna more likable than always. She's already so likable, but this was like an episode where it was like, well, wait a minute now. You guys don't need to pick on her like that. I don't know. Did you feel the same? Anyways, randomly Ronnie Jr. doing an episode a little bit tired, a little bit exhausted, but the show always must go on. And if you could tell, before we do anything, we have to celebrate the Virgos because the Virgos are always quite amazing, always number one, best time of the year. But I gotta say, my opinion is I think that Bravo should have done what they do on a lot of holidays. They usually don't run a new episode, but they ran the new Real Housewives of Atlanta reunion episode 1, the part 1, and the Real Housewives of New York episode 8. I would have thought, let it go, nothing on that Sunday, and then everyone could catch up the following week. Because now I'm thinking, wait a minute, I'm trying to celebrate my birthday and all the great Virgos out there. Did you know my Virgo birthday twins are, of course, the iconic and late Freddie Mercury, but also, and she, of course, just passed about a year ago or sometime this year, actually. The phenomenally beautiful Raquel Welch was also my birthday twin. So shout out to all the Virgos. But anyways, I'm just making excuses that I'm like, oh, I'm tired. I don't even really want to come to do a recap. But I also want to be consistent with the mission of like coming every week and doing one if this is what I said I was going to do. So here I am. And this is episode 8, the Jenna episode. I'm going to try to go off of my notes. See, I brought the old laptop here. I'm gonna try, I say this every time, to do this really quickly, but it's like one thought leads to another, to another, to another, to another. And so I end up sort of, looking at it and I'm like, did I just talk for like an hour by myself? Anyways, the first thing you should know is if you want to support and you're like, oh my gosh, if it's his birthday, why don't I make it rain on his Patreon? You can do that. Patreon.com/randomly Ronnie Jr. And of course, if you wanted to also see all the links or whatnot, everything is right there through. If you go to randomlyronniejr.com, you can go through the YouTube channel and get all the links. So if you even wanted to do more and show a little more extra love, you can do that. Or, there's lots of ways to do that. You could do comments is always valuable and the subscriptions and the likes and stuff like that. Anyways, you did not come here to hear me talk about how tired and disheveled I'm feeling, but I still wanted to show up and talk about this episode. So we started off with Sai and Uba. They're meeting in Soho. They're at a place called Zimmerman. I told you before that I really enjoy when we see the gals shopping amongst New York City and going to events and stuff like that. That's a thing that I would want to see more and more and more. There was the one time where you had Jessel met with Brynn and she went to a place that she, a designer that she enjoyed. So I thought that was cool. I'll always say that every episode, because that's that part of the show that you also enjoy, not just where it's the cast members, but you want to see kind of them out amongst meetings and shopping and, making things happen. I was watching this thing, it was like the best of Lady Gaga on MTV's like YouTube channel or something, and they show like a moment. Now, albeit she was already sort of on the come up, but it was definitely not what you would have thought Lady Gaga would have become. Or not that you thought she wasn't, but it was still early on, is what I'm saying. And they featured her in an episode of The Hills. It was like very paramount to the story of like what Lauren Conrad, or maybe it was Whitney Port, I'm not sure, they were doing. And I just love the way things coincide like that. So if anything, I would like to see even more. So rather than just hearing about Sai being a content creator, maybe seeing her pound the pavement, going to meetings, working with brands, I think that would be really valuable. And it would make sense too, because when she gets, what's the word we're going to use? Snooty at the end, where she says, I can't just post for Jenna. I get paid for that, which I'll tell you what I feel about that in a moment. But it would add more context to like, her seeing the process a little bit. That's just what I feel. Anyways, I'm glad that Uba's back. I think Uba is so necessary. Her comedic timing and charm and wit is valuable. It's a great moment too, because Sai is able to sort of catch her up on all what's been going on since Uba has been sick for a little bit. And it's a way for her to say, hey, we're going to do a girls trip to Anguilla, which really adds value to, I grew up in California, but like I lived in New York for 7 years. It adds such a relatability factor to anyone who like knows what that January could feel like. I always feel like February is even worse, but January is a really great time to say, you know what, we've done the holidays, we celebrated New Year's, it's exciting. Yes, albeit it's cold and it's winter, but you get a chance to kind of in January reshift. So people always do, you hear people going to Florida during the holiday, or bigger places too. But like the point is, you do want to get out of New York City during the cold winter months. So I thought it was a good moment to set up the episode and get started. Now I got more to talk about, but before we do that, we do got to always talk about, as I said a second ago, how you could support this one, Randomly Ronnie Jr., because I said we want to see more of Sai's business, but we should also learn more of my business before we talk about the great Jenna Lyons and how I still love Erin, and I still, of course, love Jessel and all that. But first, here's a quick word.
Well, hello there. Thank you for watching and supporting the show with my good friend, Randomly Ronnie Jr. Who the hell am I? Great question. My name is Mark Rodriguez with Mastermind Media, and I wanted to take just a moment of your time to let you know about all the other incredible things this guy, Randomly Ronnie Jr. has going on. But first, before we get into that, please comment, like, and subscribe. That is how he grows here on these channels. But one channel you probably don't know about is patreon.com/Randomly Ronnie Jr., where he's got a bunch more exclusive content. So please check that out. But speaking of YouTube, let's go back to YouTube for a second. He's got this hashtag, Randomly with Ronnie Jr., and it shows all of his stuff in his days in radio from back in the day, all the way up to present day, and his new interviews, podcasts, just videos across the board. So please check that out, because when you think about content creators, there's millions of content creators, but there's only one, Randomly Ronnie Jr. Let's get back into the show.
All right. Well, thank you, Mark, for those words. And it's very good to support, as we say. And as I always say about what I love about Real Housewives of New York is we get to see the process of their business and how to navigate. So, within my business too, it's like I always say, though I have, the 20 years of experience within the radio industry, some television appearances, in front of the camera, behind the camera, all that stuff, it still is a new platform, and platforms are all different across the board. So it's just always valuable to say, hey, these are a couple of things you could do if you like the commentary, but I don't know, maybe you don't like the commentary. Anyways, moving on, let me tell you what I do like. What I do like is for one is knowing that we're going to have them leaving and going on this beautiful trip. A girl's trip is just so paramount to these shows. But I also like that before we did that, we got a little bit of connection within some of the cast members and their families. It's just such a good way. And when you team it up to the holidays too, it's such a good way to, not like I'm saying because everyone comes in with a huge brand these days, like what they want to get to come across. But sometimes, and I would say this with my family too, when you go on the camera and are doing your show and your, not shtick per se, but like your thing, what you want to be achieved on the show, it's always much more connectable. That's not a word, is it? Connecting? It's much more connecting when you have them talk with family members. So to see Jenna in Rockefeller Center with her brother and Brynn in Temescal Canyon hiking with her brother, I feel like it's all like adds to some of the stuff, because all the things that they say, we're just taking their word for it when they bring parts of their personality into the group. But when you get to see them amongst people that they either have long friendships with, or in this case family, it really does do a wonderful thing, in my opinion. So we have the two of them. I like them both. Can I say, is this gonna sound rude? I think both siblings were good looking. Like everyone's camera ready. Not that in the past you would see the casted, the stars of the show look beautiful and that their siblings or whoever it would be, parents or family or cousins or whatever, would not look camera ready. But it was just like, wow, everyone looks so camera ready. Now, it also made me say, is this the brother that said Jenna genitalia and named her Jenna? Anyways, that's not what's important. What's important is that Jenna's saying that Rockefeller Center, this is just show the level of boss that she really is, that she has been, assigned to add a newness to the retail of a Rockefeller Center. Because, Rockefeller Center, of course, is just very touristy, and though it's good for that, even when I was, I would always remember watching like the Today Show, and you would see like the little coffee shop, Dean and DeLuca, right in the corner when you would see them go outside for the Today Show. There's all these things that are iconic for sure, but like it sounded like what Jenna's doing is she's adding more authenticity, where it would be the difference between like going to like a really cute shopping area than like going to a place where there's like big box stores like that. It felt like that was what maybe the assignment, what was the assignment? It felt like the assignment was for Jenna to bring all that she's connected with, to bring it a little bit more of a truer New York experience, which I think is great. In terms of that area, I did work on production for America's Got Talent, so that's not exactly Rockefeller Center. Well, it's pretty close. Radio City, it's all the same little area, and there's all the tunnels that go downstairs, and you could end up where the tree is or whatnot, and where the little the dining area is, which becomes the ice skating rink later on. So I loved the little aspect of that, like to make it more New York. And again, I liked seeing the brother. She goes on to share that her brother, or she's telling him rather that, I'm going to go on this trip, but these are the things that sort of make me feel a little bit nervous. And, we're all welcome to have those feelings. I'll talk about what I feel about how they received it and how she carried it out a little bit later. Let's move on to Brynn. I want to say that Brynn, while I've had a little bit of a challenge with her fitting into this franchise, I feel like she fits into the gimmick or the branding that she's doing fits into like, okay, so she's fine on Real Housewives of New York, but she's definitely not Real Housewives of Beverly Hills. And I don't even mean that like Beverly Hills is great, because I really don't love that franchise that much. I'm more of like Potomac, Miami, the Kenya Moore Show. Beverly Hills, not my favorite. But what I'm trying to say is, I feel like there's a show that's like in the middle that Brynn needs to be like the lead of. So it's not Real Housewives of Beverly Hills, and it's not Vanderpump. She doesn't fit either of those, but she fits like her own lane. And seeing her and knowing that she's lived in LA and, is friends with Lisa Vanderpump's daughter, Pandora, and all these things, and just even the hiking Temescal Canyon. I've done the Temescal Canyon hike, quite beautiful. It makes you think like, oh, there's something here. So it was that and her quote later on in the episode, which I'll get to, about like, I can't hate Jenna. She looks too beautiful. I can't have an issue with people that are beautiful. There's something there, but I just do feel like she's been the one who's missed the mark quite a bit on this show, me personally. But then again, I'm a little bit older. She might play to a younger audience. But there is something there about that Brynn, I'll tell you. Brynn, as I said, she's hiking at Temescal Canyon with the brother. I guess they both used to live in LA, so it was like a kind of like where they, do the holidays or whatnot, which is good because it was the first thing I thought of when we saw the episodes where she was talking about at Brynn's Giving. First thing I thought of was like, okay, she had a tumultuous thing with her parents, and then the grandmother was the one who really sort of raised her. My first thing, and I had asked this question, was like, well, did she also, like, is she still close with her siblings? And I guess the answer is yes. So that actually was good. It was funny though. It was a tad funny that the brother was like, okay, like tell me what you're doing, because it's like it seems like online it looks like this, but then what's the real story? Why did that just sound funny to me? Like even the brother was like saying, I don't know what he was saying, and I felt like he was insinuating something. But anyways, it opened up just for her to at least explore and speak and be truthful. And when she speaks truthfully, it's the best. Because I do think that's an interesting thing. In fact, he was a little bit not harsh, but he did like say, well, so do you want to have kids? Like he was on her, not overly, but I just think in that situation you should, my opinion, you should leave more like an opening to be a sounding board. But I don't feel like you should ever tell a woman that's in that age bracket, like, so are you going to have kids? Do you want to have kids? I just feel like it's a pressure that you probably should not really push for, because I feel like it's a journey that's quite interesting. It's definitely a journey that's quite interesting if you're not married. So there was a lot to it. But one of the things that was probably the most interesting about Brynn there was that she stated that, I mean, this is like the funny part. It's like Brynn is so good, but it's like, she distracts her own conversation by like all the little like goofy stuff. But that does make sense because she did say like, I trained myself to like get a reaction out of people so I could kind of diffuse the pain. So I do get it. But what I'm saying is it was actually very valuable to hear her say, the engagements, I don't know, but I think I'd be good for the marriage. And rather than defining whether or not like, oh, which one's more of a commitment, obviously the marriage is more of a commitment than the dating. But the point is, I thought it was so valuable for her to say, I almost don't want to live the lifestyle of tradition, 2-car garage, white. Well, she obviously wants to live more affluent, but like, the what they say, like the 2.5 kids, with the dog and the white picket fence, like all of the status quo things, because she feels like the time within growing up that was the space that would have been the status quo was so negative towards her and really, caused pain. So I thought that was like, ooh, good. We like this. Like this is like Brynn at her best, Anyway, I just thought it was good to share. And as I said a second ago, it's good to see Jenna with her brother. It's good to see Brynn with her brother. And it's also very like, paints the picture of the holidays, I actually got to say, I don't know that I love watching the holidays or the winter season on a reality show as much as I like to see, like, for instance, you remember when Jersey Shore premiered all those years ago? It was in the winter. And so you saw like a summer show. I don't know if I like watching a summer show showcase the winter, because it's like the end of summer right now. And it's like, it feels too far off. I don't know. But I mean, what can you do? They can't like do it live. But it's just like a little thing that I was like, of the two, I don't know that it really reads so much. But it was good because you see the little like 2-week gap between, everyone doing their holiday experiences, all the cast, doing different things. So we come back 2 weeks later, so we're like in January. And Erin goes to visit Jenna after her dental surgery because, of course, she had a lot of work that she's been doing throughout the years. And while she's there, Erin brings the butternut squash soup, which is such a warm, comforting thing. And this is the first time Erin's sort of seen anybody after she walked out of Brynn's wreath making a couple weeks ago before her other trip. So she went on one trip and potentially is going to go on a second trip. She tells Jenna, well, I don't know. She's like, I don't even know if I want to go on this trip because of like being so frustrated with everybody when she saw them a couple weeks ago. But I never for a moment thought that Erin wasn't necessarily not gonna actually go. I just thought more like she wanted to talk about it. And Jenna, because she's like not feeling well, she's just kind of like, yeah, okay. Not that Jenna was being mean. Of course, Jenna's not feeling well. But the conversation shifts a little bit to, of course, how Jenna's feeling and just other stuff that's going on. And so she states that, and again, she had been mentioning it before, that based on, her she has, some issues that she feels very protective over. So she's like, listen, I'm going to fly up there a little bit early for the trip because I want to be able to get like a tan and I want to make sure that I'm like comfortable in my own skin because there's some things that make me feel uncomfortable. And even when I heard that, not even based on like where we get to the end of the episode, which we'll get to, I just felt like it really isn't anyone's business. Like I always say that you're allowed to judge these things, but it really isn't anyone's business. Even the concept of like, what if I wanted to go on the trip and I want to get there a couple days before because I know that the trip's going to be a lot. It's going to like drain me in some ways. It'll be fun, but it'll drain me. I feel like maybe going early to get there, to just like take a beat, do things the way you want, peacefully, be on the beach. And that way you're like giving your best. I mean, the line that she said was like, well, it's going to work great for me because then I'll show up in the best version of myself. So I was all for it. But then there's the part that where she was like, oh, but by the way, I don't want to fly coach. And it's like, I mean, coach is such an interesting thing because it's so funny that it's termed as like a status thing when in reality, like, for me personally, it's like a couple things. She says, I don't want to do it because at my age, and I'm 6 feet tall, there's that thing. There's like, when you were like in your 20s, you would do pretty much anything. But as you get older, I think it's the same term. There's just things that you don't want to do anymore that you were so easy breezy about when you were younger. I remember one time, one of my friends, I was living in LA because I'm from Southern California, but she was moving back to the East Coast. Or she had already moved. And when she came back, you get excited, like, oh, okay, let's grab coffee or something like that. And I said, oh, are you staying at such and such's house, a friend's? And she's like, oh, I'm a little over the couch thing at this age. I'm gonna stay at the Standard. She used to work at the Standard. And so I was like, at first your mind wants to take it to like, and we're like mid-30s at this point. Your mind wants to take it to like, oh, excuse me, who do you think you are? But the reality is like, the couch thing is great and it's free and it's cheap, but like people live differently. You might have a dog that's like sniffling in your face. Now I know this is a different thing that we're talking about than flying, but the point is, it made me think of that when Jenna was saying, I want to make sure that at this age, I don't even want to be inconvenienced, I don't even want to deal with it. And the fact of the matter is, the last time I was at JFK, I remember saying to myself, I said, Self, they're playing with us, aren't they? They are playing with us because they made us go through that damn TSA and it took so long, unnecessarily long. Like it wasn't long because it was a lot of people. It was long because the lines were this and this and this and this and stalled here and delays here. You go there so early, you're like, oh, I'll be fine. But you're like, actually, when you finally get your shoes back on and your stuff from the containers, it's like, you look at the time, you're like, I only have time to go to the restroom and like jump on the damn plane, And so, anyways, my point is, I think they make things sometimes, they make things so uncomfortable that you sort of force yourself to say, I just wanted a little more of a luxurious experience. And that would be in the vein of like, I never paid for the pre-check, but people have pre-check. But they probably have pre-check because the regular has turned into like an SHIT show. Like it's just a mess. So the same thing. There was a day and age where like flying in coach, I think, was doable and comfortable, and the seats weren't as tight as they used to be. So imagine like I've gained a little bit of weight. Being on the little tight seats. Like I'm just saying hypothetically, if I were to not take coach, and I were to want to take a business class, it wouldn't be about like, excuse me, who does randomly Ronnie think he is? Of course, I do think I'm amazing, but it would be more about they made this so uncomfortable that paying the premium price for luxury isn't even really luxury anymore. Anyways, that was not what her situation is, and she got the money to do it. So what's the problem? Anyways, that's just what she says. Now the shady thing, even though I love me some Erin, I say that on every recap, is Erin is like, oh girl, I hear you, boom and boom. But then, you know, as we flash forward, she doesn't disagree, but she lets everyone know. So Erin is on assignment. She's like, she's checked in, she's clocked in, she's gonna make a TV show. Go ahead, Erin. We still love Erin. She's still our favorite. So the ladies get ready for the trip. You've got Erin and Abe with their kids. I love the way Erin and Abe they're very like loving to their kids, but they're also like kind of, it's like that New York thing, like that you force your kids to grow up a little bit sooner. I think she made the mention, she was like, I got married at 24, and 24 in New York is like, what, 35 in Nebraska. And even though that sounds shady boots, it's not. And I feel like the way they raise their kids, because, you know, there's a lot of moments where we see where Erin's like, okay, go over there. I need to talk to your dad. And it sounds and seems like there's not a lot of love there, but there is. And I feel like that's just the way sometimes you grow. I don't know. I don't know, but I just like it. You know, I have my little bias for liking Erin and Abe, and it was just a funny little scene there. We've got Jenna and Jessel and Pavitt talking about Vietnam, to which she makes the most insane, funny line where she says, well, why are you gonna go there? And he was like, oh, I need to go get, like, you know, some authentic food or whatever the case. And she's like, so I'm going to Anguilla for a girls trip and you're going for a sandwich? So just that super duper chaotic, funny, awkward energy that we've always liked from the two of them, Jessel and Pavitt. I want to say that even though we have this quick confessional of Pavitt, he says, oh, well, flying to me is like a vacation in itself, which I used to kind of really feel that. I used to be like, oh, it's like a nice experience. But again, now everything has just gotten so chaotic that I'm like, this is a mess. I just want to get to my location. I used to actually sort of feel what he was saying. But anyways, how he said that, he said, oh, I like flying. It's like the vacation in itself. This is a new, albeit silly, reality TV concept. This is what they should do. They should have a show that's very Amazing Race style, and it's with Pavitt and Jenna. Okay? Pavitt and Jenna, and the show would be called Get Ready, Jet Set, Go. And it would be them on different tasks in all these different places they have to travel to. And if they complete their tasks correctly, they get to fly business class. But because Pavitt don't care either way, if they don't complete their tasks on their next, you know, travel location, they have to sit and coach. I mean, while it's a silly show, how many of these silly shows are we seeing on the Peacock streaming network? How many of these silly shows are we seeing on Bravo TV? How many silly shows are we seeing? All these love relationship shows. You know, that's a different network. That's like Netflix is really bad for some other things, but it's always these weird concepts. So I says, you know what? I'm going to come up with a concept. So that's the show that you should do. Pavitt and Jenna, get ready, jet set, go. All right, so anyway, you've got the ladies that arrive at JFK at around 6 o'clock. The last time I took an early flight, I decided to try to stay up overnight. And I was like, well, if it's a like 5 a.m. flight, you got to start checking in around 4-ish or something like that. Might have been a 4:30 flight, but I was going to stay up the whole night. I got to tell you, I'm never going to do that again, because I didn't realize the person who was sitting next to me was going to have all this chaos. So rather than being able to sleep the 5 hours, I had to be amongst their chaos. Again, first thing I think is like, why am I not taking business class like Jenna? And Jenna has the money. If I did it, it would be a challenge because I don't got the money for that. It's just they put you too close, right? And then you don't know that you're going to have somebody who's just, I mean, this passenger next to me had like, you know how there's like no room and they bring their carry-on, but they put it in front of them? There's not even room for that. And it was like things were coming in and out of the bag and dropping. I think there was a whole laptop that fell at one point, and iPad, and like then it would be like, I'll tell you one thing. I'm glad that the person next to me didn't say, oh, can you pick that up? Because I'm going to tell you, I would have been like, no, I'm trying to sleep. And in fact, this particular crazy person sitting next to me would say, I got to go to the bathroom. Mind you, in a 5-hour flight, it was about 10 bathroom breaks. And I'm not going to judge. I got up every time. But the other person next to me didn't get up right away. But I think it was just because he was asleep. And then she started like telling him something. And I was like, oh, no. It was the one time in life, or always, but it was one of those one times in life where I'm like, I am so unattracted to the drama. Like, usually you like want it to subside and like not become a thing, but you're still kind of like intrigued, like, ooh, what is she going to say? What is she going to say? And also I was starting to feel like, I don't know if she's, all the way here, and if there's a chemical situation, I didn't know, so I was like, I'm just gonna mind my business. But I remember when she started telling him, he was like, I just woke up, and I'm thinking, oh, he's gonna get mad at her, and I'm like, these two are on each side of me because I'm in the middle, and again, you always have a little tinge of drama in your heart. You're like, ooh, let's see what happens. But I was like, I want to go to sleep. I have not been to sleep. And with the quickness, I was like, and they both listened to me, which was good because they very well couldn't have, and then we could have all three been arguing. So, anyways, the ladies arrive at JFK at 6 o'clock. Hopefully they're well slept, unlike my last flight where I was not well slept. And I was like, I'm going to go overnight and I'm going to sleep on the plane and it's going to be wonderful. And that did not happen. Then it ruined my next day too. And so on and so forth. The drama, right? Erin puts her feelings aside and she makes nice with the girls. She tells them, I know how to fly. So like, she checks in all her stuff or whatever. Erin is so great for the show because she always like outshines everybody in a weird way. She's playful and fun with them, but she finds little nudges, which I like. At this stage, though, Jenna's already at the Four Seasons. She's living her good life. She's like basking in all of it. Which, again, rightfully so. The ladies arrive in Anguilla and they choose the rooms. I don't know how you feel about this, but I feel like the room running around, it's kind of a played out like segment on these shows. It doesn't, I know it made sense because Ramona was such a greedy human being. But for the sake of it, I'll say my question to you within the rooms is, do you like, what would be your, like, things, your checklist? For me, I don't need it to be the biggest room, but I definitely don't want the first floor or the basement or the fish room. I want the second story. And I would prefer that it's like in a corner or something like that. I don't like being like right in the middle. Now I know that I think Jessel and was it Jessel and Uba who were sharing? Yeah, they're sharing, and they were like making the best of it. So I do think that was actually very kind of them, especially that Uba at the first episode said, I typically like to have my own sleeping arrangement so I can like decompress and whatever. So the fact that she so kindly was like, oh, I'll be the one to share the room. It's great. And also it's a big, beautiful location, that they're staying in. There's not these little tiny, this is not the Motel 6. So I was like, really like, oh, look at Uba being warm and compromising in a little bit of a way. But they liked their room because those was on the first floor, which I would never. It was like by the pool, which also I would never, because she was like, she said it, Jessel's like, oh, we're right by the pool. So like, this is perfect. We just like walk right out there. You're also right by the pool, which means all that energy of everyone hanging, they're like right in your room, even though they're not, but they are. Not me. I am up the stairs. I'm in the corner and I don't want do you remember the scene in The Bronx Tale where when Colloginal is throwing the dice? And he was like, wait, this is all wrong. I don't want his energy looking at his energy. I don't think he said it like that, but that's how he took it. I don't want his eyes looking at his eyes when he's about to roll the dice. That's how I am. I'm very like, get like, in terms of where you sleep, in terms of where you decompress. So yeah, I think it was commendable by Jessel and Uba because I personally would never be like very like, oh, first floor and right by the pool. No, because then I'm going to have all the people around. No, I'm going to the second floor. Leave me alone. That's the only, trying to use the right word, the only particular that I have. So anyways, Erin gets right to it and she's like, she tells like all the girls, she's like, I want to start talking about this. And I think she also says, I should say, when does Jenna get here? Because I want to say this before she gets here. Look, Erin's not even like covert about like her, building out like I'm gonna tell you guys all this issue. You guys are all gonna get mad, and I'm gonna, collect my check. Erin has clocked in. Yes, she has. Well, she says, hey, by the way, everyone, so she said it was because of this, but actually it's because she doesn't want to fly coach, which it could be both, right? It could be both is what I think. The ladies go eat. Anyways, that like plants the seed. They go eat. They make some jokes about Erin and, oh, well, at least we're eating because, Sai's running things right now. If it was Erin, none of us would eat. And I think it's funny because like they made some jabs and Erin's just like, all right. Like she does not care. She really is like, I'm not entertaining it. Brynn starts to build tension towards Jenna when they are all eating outside. She's saying that, she doesn't really like that Jenna brings her baby voice, and it makes it hard to kind of like be mad at her because she kind of like always, will say something and then she's like, well, I don't know. I just, this is just what I'm doing. And I had noticed that little voice, that little awkwardness, but I think that's part of the charm. I'll get to a little bit later what I think of like where Brynn's core disagreements with Jenna is, because remember, we go back to when Jenna would do something and Brynn would say, oh, well, I did something wrong. You guys all got mad at me. Jenna Lyons did something wrong and you guys didn't get mad at her, when they weren't the same situations, but the same something is in Brynn that is kind of making her feel something, and I'll get to it in a second. Before, though, the fun part, and it has to be true, you can rid a headache. And who said this? Was this Sai? Well, Sai agreed. Sai said, if I ever have a headache, I'll make my husband have sex with me so I could get an orgasm, and then the headache goes away. They all made jokes about it. Now, Jessel's like laughing. She's like, I have no idea. Jessel's like, usually I say I have a headache so I don't have to have sex. Oh, that darn Jessel. That Jessel and Pavitt, keep them on the show forever. They are very funny. But anyways, now, not to be in like ooh, but like, I mean, I think like neurologically, it does make, it's true, right? It has to absolutely be true that, when those endorphins come, that you would, your body chemistry changes. I don't think it was actually that like risque of a comment. I think it's actually like technically true. That's just what I think. But it was funny, good conversations. We want in this show to have the drama for sure, and the the excitement, the wealth, all that stuff. But then you also want to have it where it's funny and goofy and like lighthearted too. All right. So what is not lighthearted is Brynn is starting to say what Sai has already said, which leads me to believe they've had a lot of conversations about this already, that they've all said it separately, but now they're starting to say it in the group. Jenna's still not here. She's still at the Four Seasons, living her good life. And Brynn is saying, I don't like how Jenna, what she does is sort of like a marketing endeavor. It's always about branding, this, and this. So what do you feel about that? That's number one. I'll turn it over to like, what do you feel about it? But for me, I feel like you can't fault somebody who structurally, I said this last episode on the channel here, that you can't structurally be that frustrated with someone if they're coming into a situation slightly stronger than your situation. We so badly want to make it like, because we're all on the same show, it's divided equally. And I want it always to be, the treatment to be fair for sure. But you can't expect Jenna to turn herself down for Brynn to feel like, okay, Brynn, you haven't like, you have, to the degree of Jenna, you have not cut your teeth. You don't have enough skin in the game. Like you haven't really had much yet, so you can't look at Jenna as like, oh, it's just to think of it as like her being a little deceitful would be kind of inaccurate in my opinion. Or not deceitful, but like disingenuous, I guess was the word that went around. Me personally, I don't think it was like that. I don't think Jenna is being that way. I think she had, the show asks you to share your life, and so much of her life is all of this excitement. And when they ran the clip, unless there was more to it, I don't think she tried to fake the audience like, oh, this is what I got my friends on the Real Housewives of New York, and I gave it to them from the heart, and then it turns out like it was a branding collaboration. I don't think so. She may have mentioned, yes, like I give these to my friends, but they also don't know, like that could have been to other friends too. Either way, it feels like a reach to make it as if she's regifting to a degree. So anyways, Bryn's starting to feel away. We know that Sai already had felt away. Anyway, Brynn does not feel like gifts and connections and people of affluence in New York City have known to give her gifts, but then the connection wasn't there. And I feel like it's a lot of other stuff that's going on within her mindset to like what Jenna's actually doing in terms of gifts. But Brynn will let you have that. You know, obviously everyone has their own situations. I don't think in this case Jenna is in that category, but if it's a way that as a relatability factor makes Brynn feel that, of course she's welcome to have that feeling. Absolutely. Jenna does arrive finally. You know, before there's like a lot of talks of her. There's a talks of her with the coach, not flying coach, flying to fly business class, and then her genetic disease was why she wants to go and tan the day before, and then now also her gift giving. It's kind of like, Jenna's like, I don't really like to do girls trips, or I have not done them, and then it's like she's excited. She finally like takes her moment to get there early, like to get set, and then it's like as soon as she gets there, they're like, I mean, they weren't angry, but they all had something to say. To which, speaking of the word angry, Brynn's greatest line of this episode was, it's hard to be angry at people when they look that good. So she was just saying she had, of course, issues with Jenna, but like she was going to let it pass because Jenna did look beautiful. And she did. Erin makes a little sort of shady comment. She's like, well, for somebody who doesn't like showing her skin, she's sure showing a lot of it. I just thought she looked beautiful. I thought it was age appropriate. Not that there's a way to dress in a certain age bracket. Oh, the reason I bring up age, one simple thing. People who are significantly younger than you, sometimes they'll always want to be like, no, it's fine, it's fine, it's fine. But what you don't realize is like, especially going on a TV show and people will go and screenshot something and like make a tweet about it. And like, I could understand how it's not a competition, but I could understand when you're on a show and you're the 55-year-old, and not only based on the genetic disorder that Jenna has, but based on even turning 55, and it's a couple things. It's not just who and what she's got going on. It's also, you do look different at 55 than when you looked at 30. I could be around my younger 28-year-old friends and, oh, Ronnie, you look fine. Randomly, you look fine, which I feel like I do, but there's still a level of like when you're around a group, what type of judgment that you might get. I think if anything, Jenna was just protecting that. It's like how I always say, I hate it. This is me personally. I hate it when you could watch a show like this and you'll say something like about somebody's look, like Dorinda or like a Charisse of Real Housewives of Potomac, where you're a little more critical of them, but then you'll give a pass to that like young, hot, like I'm not saying she's hot, but like, Candace, younger or whatever. Leah McSweeney was like younger. Like they're not necessarily even great cast members, but they could, they could turn looks and stuff like that. I just am always like, I feel like the fan base sometimes can be a little bit harsh. So I think maybe Jenna was protecting that a little bit too. You know what I mean? I mean, even for me, I got the challenge. I got to come up here, and there's been stages of my career when digital content wasn't as available the way that it is now, where if it was, it would have been a little funner and easier to jump on and, work a little less because you're already kind of like in that good, you're 30 years old, the metabolism is going, sometimes you have to factor that in. It's not anything within self. It's not a self-confidence issue, but it is knowing the whole scenario. And I think if anything, Jenna was just sort of knowing and understanding that. I think it was okay. But Jenna does start to say this is what it was when they give her all of these issues that they have with her. What I didn't like is that Brynn says it's a cop-out. I don't think it was a cop-out. I thought it was a good thing. What I think is the most interesting thing is, anyway, so they finally say, funniest line ever. Jenna goes, well, have you ever seen me like, dressed like this or this or this in a red carpet? And Brynn goes, I've never seen you at a red carpet. It's like, Brynn, you have studied Jenna's life. Don't lie to us. We know that you have. Anyway, they schedule the time where they're going to all go to dinner. It's going to be at 8:00. It's a beautiful, just the energy is right. But what was good was that Jenna ends up getting consoled by Jessel, and Jessel's like, hey, it was kind of a lot going on over there. How do you feel? And I thought the best bet for that is because sometimes when stuff like that happens, you can be like, okay, I don't want to go to the level of like, I don't want to be angered. I don't want to argue with nobody. But, I also don't want to be told these things. It felt like Jenna snapped into her, what I would imagine, the way she talked as a very like business professional, all those years of working in the corporate world and succeeding so wonderfully does take some stern, that energy, that conversation, that this is what needs to happen, da 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 da. So I felt like she didn't want to necessarily go there because I felt like she was, I don't want to use the word ambush, but I felt like it was a shock to her. And I think we all potentially do that, where we can go to a place where we're like, once we get confronted with something, we like get excited. And I like that she didn't get excited, but I did definitely bother her. It did definitely bother her. So, but when talking to Jessel, it was good because it was like she started like problem solving again. Like the way I'm saying is I'm equating it to like her running, this giant corporate company and succeeding in such levels that she did, that, she's used to making difficult decisions. So I think she focused in on that, because the other route is you start going tit for tat and then you start coming out of character. And I knew that watching the show, one thing we love about Jenna is she wasn't going to come out of character. Even if Sai's going to go a certain way or Brynn's going to go a certain way, Jenna doesn't want to necessarily go that way also. So I thought that was actually really cool. And that sort of ends the episode. Like I said, in my mind, I'm just more like, why does Brynn have all the resentment? Where is that coming from? Is it kind of like, is she jealous being in the space of Jenna and saying like, well, why are they treating her better? Why is she the star of the show? We're all on the show, but you're not all Jenna Lyons. That's just what it is. And I think that's maybe a little bit of it. I remember hearing that and doing recaps years ago on a different platform, and it was somebody had made mention. They were like, well, they were telling me, because I love Kenya Moore. They're like, you can't say Kenya Moore is any more this or this because they're all on the same show. And I'm like, but the resumes don't check out the same. Yes, people could be on the same show, but you can't take away what Kenya Moore's contribution to, this industry has been, and the longevity. So even if like right now, today, we're on the same show, we're not the same. So maybe Brynn is suffering from that a little bit. Like, why am I not getting the shine? Why am I not getting all the attention? Why is it all about Jenna? I mean, maybe, I don't know. My report card is still Jenna, Jessel, Erin, and Uba, outstanding for the show. The two weaker links are, unfortunately, Sai and unfortunately Brynn. Not saying they don't have a place, but those are just me being like a scorecard. And I'm doing it very kind. I'm not saying it like they're not deserved. No, they should be on the show for so many years, especially Brynn. No, especially Sai, especially both of them. Brynn, we can see a growth in relationship throughout the seasons. That would be wonderful. She's starting the show with no kids and no husband, and we would like to see that journey. Sai, the only thing we're missing is, because they're such a perfect, curated success, it's been kind of hard to catch more fun with her and personality also. But I did my due diligence. I always do. I went to her channel. I want to go review Sai's new podcast. Check it out, because even though I'm saying some little critiques, she does have a new podcast with one of her dear friends, and I'm sure that's going to do wonderfully. So I'm going to listen to that, check that out. But she has a video blog about like how she started the brand of, Scout the City, into how it got to where it got, and like some BuzzFeed article, and then how she navigated from that point. And I want to say that I really, really took to that. So when I say weakest links, I'm not saying anything bad. I'm just saying it's such a good cast, and those two would be the ones that have room to grow. They just so coincidentally also didn't like Jenna, who to me is one of the funner watches. Funner? That's not a word. One of the more fun people to watch on this show. They just so happen to be, the ones who caused a little bit of tension there. But I think they're wonderful. As I say, reality TV is very difficult. Not even just doing the show and production, but the reaction on Twitter, I think some of the cast members spend too much time worrying about Twitter, but it's also what came first, the chicken or the egg. I think the network should have never cared about Twitter the way that they did. And when I say Twitter, I mean all of them. TikTok, Instagram, everything. Like, who cares? Like, do the best TV show. And I think some of the cast members, not just for this franchise, but other franchises as well, they start playing to what's going to read online. And when you do that, like, you run the risk of not being interesting anymore because you're like so focused. And I think for sure Brynn has that issue. Like, she I don't think she cares about social media a lot, but I feel like she sometimes is not with the group. She's with like her well curated brand of, I want to be a trophy wife. And again, there's nothing wrong with it. I'm already saying let's give her a spinoff. I'm already saying let's spin her off. Let's take her to LA, get her with the group of like 36-year-olds, and they're all like, in their group, and some of them have and some of them don't, but like they're all like, on the hunt for trophy wife life. I think it's great. So Brynn and Sai are nothing to scoff at, in my opinion. Anyways, what do I know? Who cares? That's the episode. I gotta go. I need another drink of either alcohol or water. Shout out to the Virgos because we are amazing. Bye.
Hey, Ronnie Jr.